whether or not aggro, control, mineral. We don't know any of those things yet, but
Some conglomerate of those.
So we
and
do
here we go.
have. We got there, guys. We have an Amber Ruby deck on stream, and
Okay.
I'm very excited about this.
Yes. So I've seen a couple of this combination Amber Ruby, the straight up aggression and also late game control aspects from the red color comboed with some of the elements from Amber, like that lantern we were mentioning before. Just a great combination and some card advantage with the Rapunzel as well, giving red that sort of longevity going into the later portions of the game. So very exciting color combination from that side. And we'll see what the other player here is playing right now. So it
Ruby
looks
Amethyst.
to be, yeah. So
All right,
little
we get
bit
another one. So this is a really interesting matchup.
Yeah. So it's essentially going to be, at least I'm thinking from the beginning, a consequence of who runs out of cards first and who can actually land as much ink during the course of the early to mid game in order to get those bombs active. And we'll see what the players specifically decide to ink. Very important to keep track of the ink. If some bombs go into the inkwell, they won't be available later on. So
you can see right there, like inking the Gastons earlier are just the notion of knowing the matchup.
Exactly.
Like, Gaston's not very good in this matchup. It's a very favorable ink. And here's the next one, right? Maui, not very good in this matchup. Send him to the inkwell, get my lanterns going, move on, right? Ramping up early here is a very interesting key strategy to this matchup.
Agreed.
And it is really about, can I get ahead quick enough so I can carefree before the be prepared?
Yeah, so everything that the purple strategy is trying to do is essentially draw extra cards, and those extra cards are going to be pivotal in this matchup. So from the other side, what our Amber Ruby player wants to do is kind of out-tempo that by sort of getting a few threats established in the mid-game, sort of get ahead on the lore counters, and then see if he can sort of grind out through the card advantage that the purple player is going to put out. So here we see a 3-drop Mickey as the first card to land in play right now.
He is our true friend, and he represents, early lore here. Yeah, 2 lore at a 3/3. He trades well into the Rafiki that can potentially be coming up and follow. At least he gets the trade out of the deal, doesn't leave a card behind. And then at the end of the day, he does read like, hey, you got to answer me. You got to get rid of me.
And right now,
he's already at 6 resources if he inks this turn. So you might see Abomination Stitch come out really early here, and a 3/6 is pretty massive.
Another card that had been previously underrepresented until this event that I've seen so far. So this Stitch down early as turn 3 with 3 questing power alongside this Mickey. So 5 questing power in play with just 2 cards and getting ahead in that mid game like we mentioned before. And now let's see what the response is going to be from the way back.
Yeah. And we have a Maui here, which is I'd almost would want to just hold the Maui back one more turn.
Okay.
Just because
to challenge that Stitch maybe.
Yeah, just to hide the information. But hey, if we can get the 2-for-1 out of it, then I think we feel pretty good about it anyway.
And we're going to actually pressure the opponent from the side of purple-red, because if this Maui is not answered, it does have 3 damage on it. And it can trade into another card favorably, like the Stitch. This Stitch can't actually quest right now very favorably because the Maui will just get rid of him. Maui just being a stat stick right now, being very good with that rush keyword. So
he's really good.
And our play on the right here, kind of flooding a little bit on the Lantern, gives you early access to that Stitch, but if something like a Maui comes down and checks that Stitch, card advantage running a little low from that side. So
yeah, the problem here is he had all the ramp, but nothing to pay off the ramp.
Exactly, and then this Magic Mirror actually fundamental from the left-sided player, because it's going to guarantee that the next few inks come down and something like the Elsa trains are going to start rolling very soon here. So just making sure that in the mid game he gets all the ink possible, and then we're going to get to see another Gaston, like you mentioned, going to be inked here. He's getting a lot of copies of those and a lot of ink. We're going to have to see if he can capitalize with some sort of bomb here, and no, another pass.
Yeah, the problem here is the You Have Forgotten Me is not very good anymore. With the mirror down early and him just drawing cards. I'm not saying that inking Gaston is bad there, but You Were Forgotten Me is at a point where this is very likely the next ink card, because it's never going to do anything for you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not worth holding on to anymore, and I think you're going to see that move on. And we are going to get a Maleficent now, and this is the craziest thing about this deck is you look at this deck, and sometimes it really is very aggressive early on, and then like your opponent just does not expect a card like Maleficent to come out here. And even nonetheless, we only have six ink, but we were able to still play a Maleficent.
I know, with these 3 lanterns, able to play Maleficent early on in the game, and like you mentioned before, just segueing from that early game aggression that the
really
Ruby Amber deck can produce, and then playing a bomb like Maleficent to trade board. So, and then the response, the Elsa, like we mentioned before, just tried and true, one of the best cards in the game, answering the board here quite efficiently. So,
and so we're probably going to start seeing some Hades recursion now. I believe that's a Hades in his hand hanging out.
Okay.
You might just Dragonfire here and move on also, but we also still have 3 lanterns, so we can still just cast our Hades anyway. I think that's a Hades. Maybe
should
not.
be.
Maybe it's. I don't know what that last.
It should
card.
be
It's
another
a
You Have
foil
Forgotten
card.
Me, right? So another You Have Forgotten Me.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
just a weird foil.
greatly efficient here. Maleficent answering the Maleficent, so only Maleficent standing on the board right now. Elsa into Maleficent, such powerful bombs from the side of red purple, and we're going to see what the response is. Could it be another Maleficent?
Yeah, no, it's this.
Okay, so prioritizing a lot of mid-range threats is this Amber Ruby deck.
So it's really interesting to throw out that You Have Forgotten Me here.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a hard choice, but in the end, we're at that point in the game where nothing is really going on, and we're just going to pay for and draw with Mira. So
like I mentioned before, it's a little inefficient here because the player's just going to choose to either keep a bomb that he can just slam on the table or utilize something like this draw for 4 and then draw into bombs later on. So just not greatly efficient. But if you have the ink for it, just play it out. See if you can force some sort of awkward turn.
Yeah, this deck doesn't do a very great job of like Hades recursion too late. Now this like Maui here is going to come down and get rid of the Maleficent, which is a fine trade. We get to now pick up 2 lore with our Ariel, which we do love.
It is a decent trade here, but he does not have the opportunity to actually get the full value of the Rapunzel in a sense. He's going to need a combination of plays with something like this Ariel getting contested, or hopefully being able to trade efficiently into something and then healing it off with the Rapunzel to draw cards. But for right now, nothing to heal, which means no extra cards.
Right. Now I do really enjoy the Ariel in this list. I think it's an interesting choice. We've seen versions with Ariel. We've seen versions with Cinderella, but the 3 strength on this Cinderella actually represents a pretty nice number, and 4 willpower is still enough to utilize Rapunzel to the best of its ability.
Yeah, definitely 4 willpower, a key metric, not being able to get smashed in other matchups, for example.
Correct.
So just a very good card overall, very good stat stick, and it seems like that is what this Ruby Amber deck is prioritizing, just great stats in play.
Yeah, that's also like why it's interesting to see cards like this Ariel and that Stitch. Is that these are both 2 cards that are really underplayed
so far, yes,
in the metagame as a whole.
so far.
So this deck really kind of puts new perspective on what they're capable of.
Ooh, and
that's an interesting set. I mean, like you got to look at that though. He was representing 5 lore turn, so trading your Be Prepared for that's fine.
So doing a Be Prepared here, almost like a tempo Be Prepared, just to get rid of this questing power on the other side, and then cementing something like this Mickey is going to allow him to fully take over the board, and he already has the card advantage aspect of this game in check, so he just has to make sure that nothing gets too crazy on the board itself. And right now, nothing in play from the right side of play. He has had a lot of turns where he has all the ink in the world but nothing to do with it, and it's just a consequence of not being able to get that draw engine rolling with something like this Rapunzel.
He has 4 Stitches in his deck, and he is just flat been incapable of finding one.
Yeah.
And now, even at this point in the game, it's probably not going to be good enough. It's going to be really difficult for him to set up turns to where he even gets to untap with 2 characters in play. And he doesn't have enough of resources realistically unless he draws like another 1-drop. But his next 2 turns would have to be like 1-drop and then stir for Stitch, and that's really not great either.
And I do want to see new 1P. I do want to see him not get too aggressive with the questing, because something like a Maui trading effectively into this Mickey or the Broom into that Rapunzel is one of the best ways to get back into this game. So I want to see him be efficient in the way that he quests. So here comes Broom with the gaining 1 lore and then drawing extra cards. Always good. Get a little bit of extra advantage. And what is his pacing going to be? He's already at 11 ink, and we see 3 quests. So he does want to get the game over as fast as possible now that he has full advantage over the board. But
so here's the interesting part about this matchup in difference to the Amber Steel matchup, is that Amber Ruby has Be Prepared also.
That's true.
And Be Prepared does kill everything instead of grab your swords. So that's where the real difference makers in this matchup is. It's really hard to commit too much to the board, knowing your opponent also has Be Prepared.
So just having enough pressure in play to force the Be Prepared out while at the same time not losing too many cards to it, too many resources to it, and at the same time drawing behind those questing threats. So doing a little bit of everything here is the purple-red deck, and he's just passing. And like you mentioned, even though he has a lot of ink available, he passes with it.
And it's the right play because, and he also didn't quest with the Mickey, which is also to note.
And forces out the Be Prepared. And like you mentioned before, forcing it out on threats that already got their value. So not too much lost from that perspective, and only a LeFou to follow up.
For me, I think I would have went another turn.
Okay.
I just would have been like, you know what, I'll just take my turn. I'll just play my Rapunzel. You have to understand that Rapunzel's never going to draw you cards anyway.
In this matchup, it does not looking like it.
It's going to be really difficult to draw cards off Rapunzel. And obviously, it would have got Maleficent away. And it probably feels better that your LeFou got Maleficent away. Again, we were making jokes earlier about Dragonfire and the animated thoughts there. Maleficent just burning LeFou to the ground. That's a sight for everybody.
Not a close matchup at all. And now again, this Maleficent standing tall.
He has the ability to fan the flame. He might have been able to survive.
We're gonna get to see what card. I think a Surfing Stitch was picked up here. Another way to sort of form a little bit of counter advantage here. But again, that LeFou got thrown into play and not using a combo turn where he could go LeFou into another character card into that Surfing Stitch. So
now, in particular, we don't have Rockstar Stitches in this deck either, which is another really good character in this particular matchup to help you recover.
And in this scenario too.
Because right now, we have to hope that one character lives just so I can play two characters to draw off my Surfer.
Exactly.
And again, here he is, just Maleficent your character away.
It looks like everything is not going to survive.
Right. If Nuan understands the matchup well enough, pretty much whatever character gets put down
should be dealt with immediately.
We should remove it because then we just know we're taking our opponent off Surfers.
Especially being so ahead in tempo with double Maleficent, these Maleficents did a great job when coming into play to deal with the opposing character and at the same time have two questing powers. So incredibly efficient threat
Pocket Watch is good.
And now Pocket Watch giving rush to anything. It doesn't seem like anything is going to stick for the rest of this game from the side of Mauricio.
He understands the matchup. This is important. He knows I have to Dragonfire this card and I got to take it away. I do expect to see next turn that we're just going to drop one of these Stitches on the table, in my opinion.
A blank Stitch on the table, just making it a little bit of a sticky threat at that 8 willpower threshold. But again, single target removal from the other side.
So a concession. I love this concession here. This is a game that the player realizes he can't win. Now, there is a world where he could try and inch it out and try and catch up and just find a Be Prepared or something like that. But the opponent knows that, I can't necessarily win games quickly. And because I can't necessarily win them quickly, I need to have the most time.
So he's going to give himself the highest amount of time
to win
and therefore,
2 games.
Exactly. And that allows him to give him the highest amount of chance to be able to get through game 2. If he squeaks that one out, get through game 3 with a reasonable amount of time. So.
Yeah, I really, really respect the decision there to concede. And honestly, it's a learning moment for a lot of players that, that game wasn't over.
Exactly.
And he could have played another 5, 6, 7 turns and seen if we could have turned something into it. But he knew that his odds of turning it around and winning weren't worth the time that he might need to win 2 games. He's I don't want to draw in round 3. I want to get a win out of this. So the best way I can do that is concede this game and try and get a quick win in game 2.
And another consequence of that is his early and mid game are the priorities for Mauricio.
Yeah, and he just missed.
Yeah, winning in that amount of time before we get to see those Maleficents. If there's a Mickey from the other side of the table, those bombs as well. So being able to prioritize early to mid game is how Mauricio is going to eke out an advantage in that matchup because the purple is just too good at gaining resources and he's not going to win a grind out game like that one. So conceding, very good choice there.
Yeah, he was already kind of behind. The Pocket Watch was already there. He didn't have any answers to the current cards in play. Again, he could have attempted to just all right, I'll just play my Stitch and I'll keep pace with you. But
it seems to me like Mauricio is hedging this bet where he's really good against the decks that play to the board. A lot of strategies like that Steel Amber deck that you mentioned before, a lot of green variations as well. It looks like he has very good game against those because he controls the board very well while also swinging it with things like Rapunzel and keeping his board alive as well. But when it comes to dealing with single target removal from the red-purple side, that seems to be an Achilles heel for him because a lot of his threats need to stay in play at least one turn cycle, like we mentioned, in order to get value off of those Surfing Stitches, those Rapunzels, and that wasn't happening in that case.
Yeah, I think like specifically in his list, the lack of Rockstar is the problematic. Yeah. It's actually making your matchup against Ruby Amethyst much worse.
Much worse,
yeah. Rockstar is just almost like the best character against that deck.
Yeah, it's one of the only ways to solidify a large threat plus a good amount of smaller threats to replace themselves, forcing out the Be Prepared without losing too much card advantage. So very much a conscious decision not to play it in his deck because he's saying, okay, I'm going to hedge my bets against this side of the meta. But obviously, the red-purple deck very well represented in this field. So
second most played deck for sure today.
Yeah, so definitely he should have an early game plan against that. So we'll see how it develops. And right now, I want to see something like this one-drop Stitch comes out. Does he hold it? So he did end up holding it.
Well, I will say, for me, I think Amber Ruby is a very mulligan-heavy deck.
Okay.
So we didn't get to see his actual mulligans there, but he didn't end up with a Lantern on turn 2.
Yeah.
And that's a crucial factor in this game. It's similar to Sapphire needing Detective Mickey or Amethyst needing Maleficent and Friends and things like that. Not getting the Lantern on turn 2 here, he'd actually put some pretty far
What do you think about Mauricio opting to use his early game cards as ink instead to bridge into the mid and late game cards? It might be a consequence of, like you're mentioning, this lack of Lantern is forcing him to ink in a way that's not beneficial for him because he doesn't want to ink something like the Surfing Stitch in the early game.
I think I'm okay with it. These particular cards,
and we do see the phone Stitch come down.
The reason why I'm okay with this, in all honesty, is that you might have convinced your opponent that you didn't have them either.
Exactly.
And he's able to play 2 of them on the final turn. And realistically, if he had played them earlier, he might have put himself in a position to lose the Rafiki and things like that.
Exactly.
So he takes away that also. Obviously, Rafikis have been, they're either less, either 2 or 4. But now, if his opponent didn't have Maleficent there, would he have really played Rafiki to no more?
Yeah, how to challenge the board, exactly.
Right.
And like you're mentioning before, this 3/3 threat from the Rafiki makes these sort of 2 willpower cards a lot less efficient.
Right.
So I do like him holding him onto the turn 3, and you get to see that he gets a little bit of value with them, and maybe playing Rafiki at a more awkward turn, like this turn 4.
Right,
maybe he wants to do something different.
Turn 4 Rafiki is not as good as turn 3.
Exactly. So now we get to see... Oh, and there we go. So his turn is a little bit more awkward. This one ink is not going to be utilized to its full advantage, but we do get to see a board trade here.
To note, there was no Friends on the other side played there.
That's true.
So this actually makes a card like You Have Forgotten Me much better in this game.
We'll see if he
gets to have it here. Because your opponent is lower on resources.
Oh, and there's the Lantern. So he's going to have to choose... Let's see if he actually plays a 4-drop out here. And there's that recursion from the Hades, like you mentioned before, and it's going to get inked immediately. So
it was just a draw.
Yeah, so I like this play pattern. It's essentially using the aggressive threats in the early game to gain a little bit of that tempo back and then recycling them for ink with these Hades. So this Hades is instrumental in this matchup as well.
Right. So Mauricio is on 2 lore here for the stream. And, right now we have... a Rafiki hanging out. We picked up a Queen, which is a really nice card. I did miss the Glare card. I assume it's a mirror.
Yeah, it's probably a mirror. And you have to win over the course of the next couple of turns for Mauricio before the haymakers start coming, like the Elsa that we haven't seen yet from the side of New One. So
there's that too, and there is the realization that you have to try and win 2 games, and it's important to get the first one. But you also have to know, I have to efficiently use my time over the next 2 games to get a win in this match.
And that concession was incredibly important because we do see that there are 24 minutes left in game number 2, hopefully a game number 3 from the side of Mauricio. And this one going a lot better than the first one, but we do see that Stitch fall.
Yeah, but it never feels as bad when the card that falls drew you 2 cards.
Drew 2 cards, yes. And we're going to get to see how many more Hades does Mauricio have access to. Every Hades essentially...
Interesting to see that he took the lore rather than removing the Hades there.
Okay. I want to see... There's 5 cards in hand right now. When does he commit this Maleficent onto the table?
Probably not now. I don't think I want to trade my Maleficent for a Jetsam.
Yeah, this Jetsam's slow and steadily gaining a little bit of lore.
He picked up?
Yes. And actually opting not to get another copy of Maleficent
Oh, never mind. It was a Maleficent.
Oh, okay. So there were 2 Maleficent revealed. No, that's very good. No, that card incredibly powerful at this portion of the game, being able to quest for 2, like we mentioned before, while also dealing with a card. So as many copies of those as he can pick up is great. And he commits a Mickey. This is a concession to be prepared.
Yeah, this looks like okay. He did pass. I was hoping he wouldn't play the Maui. But this is it's weird that you look at this board state and it's like it's only 4 lore, but it's 4 lore, right?
And like you mentioned before, not using the Maleficent because this forces some sort of a be prepared situation, and the Jessam is just going to be swept away with that as well. So good patience. I think again from the side of Mauricio.
I think there's time for both players here. If I was new and I wouldn't be like, oh my god, I need to be prepared right now either, unless I was trying to establish something else. But even just an Elsa here is good. I can Elsa and then just get rid of your Mickey Mouse with my Jetsam, and I'd be pretty happy with that turn.
And New-One wants to get into a situation where he can mirror every turn while also playing a bomb. So that's why he has to prioritize inking every single turn. And we're going to see... Okay, a Goofy here.
Yeah, so he's gonna stand on his evasive characters.
And Goofy has been a standout card for this strategy.
He gets the rush too, which is nice because he's able to rush in and be evasive.
Okay.
I think he played it that turn. So that's a solid turn right there because he has 2 cards that are protected. He's winning. He's tied for the lore race, but currently it's a tie. But your cards are evasive, so you always feel better about it anyway.
Goofy's such an incredibly powerful card in this deck. It's a 3/4. So with that 4 willpower, incredibly good against steel. Tough to deal with while at the same time gaining 2 quests every turn. So just an amazing card here.
He just took a Dragon Fire from a Maleficent to the face again.
So that's how powerful he is.
I just want to create all these gifts now.
And we do get to see Mauricio is already at 8 lore. So I wonder if there's actually...
this is a board state where I'm okay be preparing.
I think he needs to. He is falling a little bit behind.
If he has his own Maleficent, it's fine. I think the bigger worry here is if he's in his hand, he doesn't have any of his own threats, then he's going to fall farther and farther behind.
And there's the actual ammunition from before.
So Elsa's good, so it gets to tap down the Maleficent, and then we can just utilize Jetsam to trade to the Mickey. But we also don't have to this turn either because they're not going to ready next turn.
And that's most likely what Newman was waiting for. He was waiting for a big bomb like this Maleficent to come down. He's going to go ahead and Elsa gain 3 lore on the following turn, or use something like the Elsa to deal with a Mickey or a Hades or chip away at this Maleficent. So just a great card overall. Honestly, Elsa Spirit of Winter, my favorite card of the set by far.
It's not a bad pick.
That card is amazing.
It's also gorgeous. I love it.
Just a cornerstone of the purple color in general. Just having 3 questing power on a body that deals with 2 threats in play.
And
exactly what Newman wants to be doing.
And the shift mechanic in itself, which is a phenomenal mechanic. But it also gets Dragon Fired.
We do get to see that premier removal spell in Dragon Fire.
Fire does beat ice today.
From Maleficent, as it turns out, good elements. I think. And how does New-One respond to this double Maleficent? Do you think he actually has a be prepared? It might be a consequence of him not having the card in hand, and if he doesn't, he is quite behind here.
At this point, we're pretty okay pulling it. We obviously picked the lore there.
And he does have one in hand. Okay, so great patience from the side of New-One. And that second Maleficent, maybe an indication of the fact that Mauricio thought, okay, he's held it for so long, maybe he doesn't have it. Yeah. Goes for the second Maleficent and does capitalize New-One on that board wipe. So.
Now, the particular problem here is we got the draw card and we have the reset. Which was, it's not like it's the worst turn ever, but we didn't get anything on the board.
And that's the main difference from the side of Mauricio from game 1.
Look at this play. He gets to get the 1, the 2, and drop the Surfer to draw 2 cards.
Exactly, so he has to do everything here.
That's just A+ card advantage.
And it might be a consequence of him understanding the matchup even better than he did in game 1. He actually held the LeFou and the Stitch for when he could combine it with the Surfing Stitch. So,
because this is just another turn where it's like, all right, well, here's 4 more lore. Go.
And now the field is completely empty from the side of New-One, and at the same time, it's forcing another be prepared. So not only does he have to be prepared again, he's going to have to mirror to somehow find an answer to these very efficient threats.
Right.
And I do... Okay, so Dragonfire...
That's good.
So leaving behind 2 questing power from the side of Mauricio. Mauricio already being in 9, he could go to 11. And another Surfing Stitch is already set up. So something like Hades into Surfing Stitch would be quite fantastic.
Yeah, it would be phenomenal. And we have a BR guest that we can also look to find one.
To go get those.
And I think that you even have enough resources to find Hades to get back Surfer, which is great.
So that would be the ideal.
We didn't find it.
Oh, okay.
We can't listen. We can't always get it all right, right?
And again, we do see something like Rapunzel, such a fantastic card in other matchups, but in this one, unable to draw those extra cards. So instead, he prioritizes the aerial for the stats itself. So
yeah, it's fine.
And I do suspect he wants to commit at least one more card into play. Again, just playing around that, be prepared as much as possible. So.
Yeah, I think the aerial here is fine. Not playing the Stitch, I think, is also great.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Because right now we have, we can go to 15 next turn. So that's still like a really nice clock to be on.
Respectable number for sure.
The opponent, now granted, the other opponent does have Watch in play, and we know he's going to have Aladdins and things like that. So.
And does he have an Aladdin here to punish is the question.
Yeah, there's a world where we could have held back. Because this just time walks us.
Essentially, yes.
Like, it's like really bad. Like, because now he just gets to shield also, ready him, and now like this just erased our entire like last 2 turns.
Progression, yeah.
And that would have been like the one thing, like knowing what my opponent's capable of. I think holding the cards back would have been safe.
And Aladdin Pocket Watch combo just dealing with aggressive strategies.
Yeah,
we've seen it time and time again.
And that Aladdin is still sitting there.
Yeah, so the Aladdin still has to get dealt with. Not terribly easy for something like Ruby Amber to deal damage, so it might even consume something like a removal spell, like the Dragon Breath or the Maleficent. So just this Aladdin being the key in this late game.
Yeah, like even this, like it
taking
is
3 cards total and gaining 4 lore. So
yeah, it's a pretty massive swing, and I assume we'll get another aerial down here.
And now I feel like Mauricio has to play with a little bit of reckless abandon, just throwing cards out there, forcing the removal out from Nuon, because we're in a situation where he does have to get the game over, and something like another Aladdin plus Pocket Watch is just going to be difficult to deal with.
I guess we went down to 7. I thought maybe we went to 11 there, but I think I missed the numbers.
He got Aladdin twice, so he actually only goes back to
13?
9. Yes, no, he was at 11, went down to 7,
yeah,
and then went up to 9 again. Yes.
And then he's just like, yeah, here's another one.
And like we mentioned before, just another Aladdin, and just being so instrumental in this matchup, untapping it to be safe against that Stitch. Just best of both worlds here with offense and defense. And these items,
it's really hard. Well, I mean, I guess when you draw the dragon and you can drag in the Aladdin, you feel pretty good about it.
Do see the perfect answer to the Aladdin here.
Yeah, so this is good. The Aladdin doesn't remove the Stitch, which is also important, at least not without also shielding it. So like you have to commit your whole turn to get rid of the Stitch. So like you're okay with like that trade in aspect.
And this Stitch wasn't able to be a highlight in game 1 because it got removed immediately. But now being able to quest for 3, we do get to see that sort of tempo advantage that it represents. Being able to go Maleficent into questing for 3, now having 5 quest power, representing a 2-turn clock. But there's Maui, one of the perfect answers here.
Maui does answer. Maui answers many things.
And this Maui being able to deal with a card while staying alive, just like the Aladdin has.
You can just, like, if you don't have anything else going on, you can just ready it too, protect it. That's what we're going to get. Like, yep.
Just eking out as many resources as possible, and a second mirror just to make sure we don't run out of cards ever.
Yeah, well, there's if it's in your hand, you're not going to utilize it. I would have preferred to draw the card first to see if I drew anything that was worth playing over my second mirror that probably isn't necessary. But in this game state, there's not many things that I would have probably played anyway, but I still would have drew the card first.
And in this sea of cards, we do see a Maleficent versus a Maui. This Maleficent also unable to turn sideways because, again, the Maui's just going to deal with it efficiently.
Unless we're able to find our own shield,
that would be quite fantastic.
Ideal. I'm not sure he has them in the list, though.
Mauricio holding on to these Be Prepareds most of the game because he has to find a perfect balance between committing to the field and being able to close out the game while at the same time getting full value out of something like his Be Prepareds. And they just haven't had an opportunity to be used. On the other side, new ones Be Prepareds have been incredible. So
yeah, it's weird because he just hasn't been in the position to where he's like had to play them.
Gotten value out of them, yeah.
He's really just been losing to the Aladdin trades. Yeah, this was a phenomenal turn. Elsa into Maui is always always great.
This Elsa being incredibly powerful, allowing this Maui that already traded with the card previously to trade with this gigantic Maleficent. And the Maleficent got a little bit of value, but no questing.
You're just seeing how good Pocket Watch is in this game, honestly. This is just it's a love song to how good White Rabbit's Pocket Watch is.
All these items instrumental in this game. The mirror in order to get an extra bit of card advantage, and the Pocket Watch to deal with most established boards along with this Elsa. So great combination. Again, just goes back to red plus purple, dream combination.
Yeah, so you get to pick up the lore. We go to 11. And we're just out of position, where I guess we just be prepared. It doesn't feel very good. We don't have anything to play afterwards.
Doesn't feel great. We can't let this Elsa live, but at the same time, Elsa got already so much value.
You're currently losing the game. The Elsa would have took him to 15. You would have been down 4 lore, again. And he just has another Aladdin. So.
There's the Aladdin as well, so... This Aladdin going to hold down the entire table, being a 5-5, just incredibly difficult to be dealt with. And we've already seen 3 Maleficents from the side of Mauricio.
And we know a 4th one's on the bottom of the deck is from one of the friends.
That is true. So,
and it's a real upsetting to see the shield now.
And the shield's just so late.
It would have been very good earlier. Now, granted, the shield represents a nice time clock because we can protect our Rapunzels a little bit, but... It's still, he's on the same clock. Like Nguyen has the lead, and he has the same combination as you. So you still have to find other ways to get back into the game.
Find a way to deal with this Aladdin while finally being able to get Shield of Virtue in play. But is it too late? And it is looking like it's a little too late.
That might be the GG there. I think we do have another Be Prepared, so there is like another reset turn going to 14. But we have the ability to just draw cards. Right now, and I expect to be prepared here, but it's really just I think it's delaying.
Stalling the inevitable.
I think it's delaying the inevitable for the most part.
Do agree with you here?
Specifically because we just don't have anything to follow up with. If we had any follow-up, I might be okay. Like I don't know what that card is in hand that he's holding back.
Shubi, you have forgotten me, and again, not that wonderful in this matchup.
It's only good when your opponent lets it be good. Whereas this Goofy is great.
Yeah, and at this point, Nguyen has seen a couple of Be Prepared, so he doesn't mind just committing everything in play, closing out the game as fast as possible, and being at 14. Looking like the next turn will be the final one for this
Goofy
game.
Rafiki represents a two-turn clock, which is great.
To get to play our own Tigger.
Okay, so we had Tiggers.
Cool.
So we have answers to the Goofy, which is nice.
And here, maybe just getting a little bit of information.
I think you're right. I think that's a You Have Forgotten Me. At this point, holding it this long, again, on that turn, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't just cast it. But that's probably game right there.
Dragonfire here and then gaining 3, and then we're representing lethal next turn.
The only way that we're delaying now is if we draw another removal, but again, we're just delaying.
We do see just an excess of riches from the side of Nguyen. He can close out the game in any way he desires, just drawing a few extra cards, make sure that everything is in order, but this should be...
The Dragonfire just delays.
Okay, and an answer to this Goofy, so the game will not 17. And next turn, but any card basically at this point just closes it out for Nguyen.
The Rafiki goes to 18, so we only need a 2 lore, and even that Maleficent is representing a way to win the game.
Yeah, so here, basically, making sure he covers all his bases, doesn't have to overcommit with something too large, so he plays a Maleficent instead, just making sure cycles through as many cards, and then plays a Broom. So
you didn't really need the Broom there.
This is already lethal.
But it does mean that, like, if you only had Maleficent, you would still win. So it's fine, and it's just so low value.
Ooh, and there is the Hades. Hades has been instrumental during the course of this game, but already at 19 lore, not enough.
It's just too late.
A little fist bump here, and we do get to see the 2-0 from the side of Nguyen. And again, it goes back to that purple-red combination, just having so much card advantage in the later portions of the game, and you got to see it there in full effect. In the second game, Mauricio drew a lot better for the matchup, getting all those card advantage.